All right, welcome back to Genius. Okay, so in day 7, let's take a look at CSS layout with Flexbox and Grid. This class is going to be a long one and it's going to be a lot to take in. So I advise that you make your notes. If there are things that you don't understand, you ask the questions in the WhatsApp group, and you would also read the book chapters that we recommend. All right. So this is very, very important. If you want to be a very good designer, designing your web page, Flexbox and Grid is very, very important for you to understand. Okay. So you'll be reading the Robbins, chapter 11. And then you can also take a look at MDN CSS Flexbox guide. So it will be talking about display. All right, we'll be talking about the main axis and the cross axis, justifying content, aligning elements, and flex direction. We'll also be talking about the grid system. Okay, how we can actually create a very amazing layout using the grid system. So you create a responsive nav bar using the Flexbox, and you also build a three-column service section. So this is going to be your assignment. All right. Uh, so CSS layers are very crucial for arranging elements on a web page. Very, very, very crucial. So there are two modern techniques, the Flexbox and the Grid. Now, this make it easy to create responsive, adaptive, and complex designs. So basically, we'll be talking about two different techniques. The first one is the Flexbox, and the second one is the Grid. So with the Flexbox, you'll be designing a one-dimensional row or column. Is the one that the layer type of Flexbox is one-dimensional, while the grid is two-dimensional. So with the Flexbox, you can arrange your elements in rows or in columns. Okay, but for the grid, you can do both. You can arrange them in rows and also in columns. So the Flexbox is best for aligning items in a single axis. All right, but the grid is a complex one, so it's for the full page layout. Okay, you can actually structure your whole page using the grid system. Okay, so for browser support, both of them are supported by the browser. So um, whenever you want to create a one-dimensional layout type, you use the Flexbox. So we are just going to be showing you examples of how all these things work. All right. So why is it important? Okay. So Flexbox is designed for one-dimensional layout, either horizontal or vertical. Okay, so it provides powerful alignment and spacing control. And before I go in, let's just show you something. Let's go to our, let's go to, this is day 7. Okay, I might just copy this. Okay, I might just use this for the day 7, is okay. So, all right, I can just copy the structure here. Okay, and I'll create day 7. Okay, so I'm just going to create. All right, I can still leave. Um, okay, I will just leave this guy. So let me just create something like let me create a nav bar. So let's use a nav bar for this our example. Here's a nav bar for this our example. So I will have some li. Mm. So this could be logo, all right. Um, this could be, let me do 4 more. So this would be logo, oops, and this could be, let's say home. This could be services. services, and this could be, let's say, contact us or about us. This could be about us, and this could be contact us. All right. So if I open this browser now, look at the way they are structured. All right. So now by default, elements are structured this way by default. But with the Flexbox technique, we can structure this stuff here to be to be aligned on the same axis on the same line. So let's continue with what we are doing here. So now the thing is this: if you want your container, all right, if you want the container of your items, that of course the container here is the UL. Oops, I'm sorry. Oh, of course, this is supposed to be this is supposed to be in. Supposed to be in UL. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so the container is this. This is the container. Okay, you can format this. This is the container. The UL is the container. Even the nav is also the container. But right now, the nearest container of this airlines is the UL. So I can turn this UL to be the container. And if I want the items that this UL contains to be to if I want to start using, if I want to turn them to flex items and also turn the UL to a flex container, I will just say display equal to flex. Normally, it is static. All right, we saw static, we saw block, inline, and all those ones in the previous section class. But here you can turn it to be display flex. Here, with this, you have activated the flex bus. So every child of this container is now a flex item. All right. So now let's go and do something. So I'm going to um, add a class here, and I'll call it container. All right. Then I'll go to my CSS, my index.css. I'll create a container class, and I'll call here I will say display is flex. So I have turned this now to a flex bus. So if I go to the browser, you can see they have been aligned like this. Look at the way they are now aligned. Okay. So now this is where we now start designing. You can see that they have been aligned on the same axis. So this is where we can now start applying some styles to the container and also to the flex items. So now we have actually turned this thing now to a flex bus, and then we can align on the same axis. It could be X axis or Y axis. So with when it is X axis, we call it the main axis, and the other side we call it cross axis. Okay, so these are the things we'll be learning further. So we have some properties for the container. All right, that's the parent. The parent right now is the UL. That's the container bus. If you add display flex, it enables flex bus on the container. Now you can also say what is the flex direction. By default, it is row. That means they will be on the X axis. You can also change it if you want the items to be in a column direction. You can actually change it. So we can go back and say, oh, the flex direction of this our container is going to be the flex direction. By default, it is row. Okay, we can say by default it is row, but we can change it to column. All right. So if I save now, go to my browser, you can see now they have been aligned this way. Look at the way they are aligned now. Okay. So you can also make it row reverse or column reverse. So if you say column reverse, that means the contact us will come first. If I say column reverse, look at it. If I save now, the contact us will now come first because it has been reversed. If I say row reversed, all right, if I save now, you can see, oops, okay. Look at where they are right now, okay? So now we can start styling, okay? So I'm going to take it back to, I'll take it back to row. That's the default. I'll take it back to row. All right. So now we also have flex wrap. Now this flex wrap is when you have, it allows for wrapping. By default, it is no wrap. It doesn't wrap. But when you need this flex wrap is um, when you have items getting bigger than the container. So let me show you something. So let's assume that we are going to this our container. Let's make the width to be very small. All right, let's make the width to, let's say something like 100 pixel. All right, if I save now, open my browser, you can see, look at it now. You can see that these guys have been, look at it. These guys came back. So the space is no longer enough. Okay, I can even go and make it 50 so that it will be more obvious. I make it obvious 50. All right. Now, but the thing is that they are not wrapping well. By default, the flex wrap is by default the flex wrap is no wrap. That means it will not wrap. But if I change it to wrap now, all right, look at it. Because the width is not enough, they can now wrap. Now, the browser would assign space to them according to the space available. Now, because this guy is 50, that is why we are seeing it as if it is now um, column direction. But let's take it back to, let's say, 100. Okay, it's still small. To 200, you can see now they are wrapping. So the browser would assign, we have logo, we have home, we have services, we have about. So they came down. Okay, so they will now wrap. So if you have more items, all right, the browser will divide the space available and share it amongst the items. And then if they didn't fit on the same row, all right, the browser would um, um, put them in the next row. Okay. So we also have another property, justify content. Now, this justify content, now it aligns items on the main axis. So how do you want them to be aligned? Do you want them, we have different values. We have flex start, we have flex end, we have center, we have space between, we have space around. So now let's take them one by one. By default, it is flex start. Look at it is flex start because it starts from the it would the items will be aligned towards the start of the container, but by default it is flex start. If I change it to flex end, they will go down to the end. All right, and of course if you actually do flex direction and your flex direction is reverse row reverse, by default it will be flex end because it is row reverse. You saw it there. So if I change, by default it is flex start, but I can say justify content. And then let me say flex end. Look at what will happen. All right. Now remember that this is the size based on the size of the container. Okay. I can even give this container, let me give this container some background color so that you can understand what is happening there. So if I say blue, you can see this is the container. So when I said justify content flex end, it went to the end of the container. All right. If I remove it or if I say flex start, it will go to the start of the container. All right. You can see it has gone to the start, but I can just remove this width so that we don't have, okay, maybe I can just make this width. Let's say I make this width something like 800 pixel. Okay, you can see now it is bigger now, and you can see now it is at the start because we said start, flex start, and that's the default. But I can go back and change it to flex end. I'll just bring my this thing here. If I say change, if I take it to flex end, you can see they have all gone to the end of the container. Okay. We also have flex, we have center. You can say if you say center, everything will be at the center. Look at it. Look at it. They are not centered. In relative to the container, they are centered relative to the container. I can say space between. If you say space between, there will be the browser will share the space. um, First of all, the first item will be taken to the start. The last item will be taken to the end. Then the remaining items, the space will not be shared between them. So if I say this space between and save, you can see. You see what we have here now. All right. You see what we have here. So I can also say space around. If you say space around, the browser would share the space. You can see this contact us does not have any space around it. But if I say space around, just play with these values. You can see that there are spaces around the items now. You can also say space evenly. Okay. You can see space evenly and look at it. So you can just try. You can just try these values. Okay. Try these values. Okay. All right. So the next one is align items. The align items has to do with the cross axis. No, so let me show you what we mean by cross axis. This is the main axis this way, and the cross axis is this way. And most times, if you're working with these properties and their values, make sure that you have enough space. Imagine that we do not have enough space around these our items and we are doing space even, space around. You will not see them. Okay, let me even take you. Let's assume that we only have 200 pixels and we are doing space evenly. Look at what will happen. You can see the space evenly did not even make sense. Even if I try space around, it will not make sense because there's no space around to share. It doesn't make any sense. If I say space between, it doesn't still make sense. But the thing is that you need to have enough space. And right now, the justified content has to do with the width. All right. So when we talk of align items, we are not talking about we now have to give it enough height. So if I say align items, all right, normally we have start, we have center, we have end. These are the three I always use. You can say flex start, flex end, center. And there are a couple of them here, but I basically use these few ones. Okay, and basically that's what you use. But before we make this, so if I say center, all right, or even say start, you will not see any difference. If I say center, all right, okay, if I say start, let me use start, okay, you will not see any difference. Why? Because we do not have enough height for this container. So let's give this container height. Let's say we give it height of 400 pixel. So it's going to be tall. You can see now, and you can see that we said justify align items start. You can see that these items are at the beginning, at the top of this container. If I say align items to be center, look at what will happen. They will be centered. If I say center, you can see that they have come to the center. You can see they have come to the center. If I say end, if I say end, look at it, they have come to the bottom of it. So this has to do with the cross axis. The cross axis is like the height, I don't know, I believe you understand what I'm saying. The cross axis is like the y-axis, while the main axis is the x-axis, that's the row. Okay, so these are common things you can actually do here. So I can just reduce the height, maybe let me do 200 so that it makes more sense, okay? So now you can also try align content. Now, this align content aligns multiple line rows. All right. It aligns multiple line. When you have multiple content inside of this guys, so I don't use this often. I don't use it. But if we try align content, Okay. If you say align content to the center, okay. Let's see. You can see. Okay, our guy is okay. So now look at what happened here. Okay, we are still doing align items to the end. Okay, but the thing is that somehow this guy has overridden this other one. We said align. Now we are saying on the vertical axis, on the cross axis, on the y axis. All right, align the contents to be at the center. So somehow it is as if it has overridden these align items. All right. Now, this align items has to do with the flex items, but the align content has to do with the content of the container. All right. It has to do with the content of the container. Now, the container does not only have to contain flex items, it can also contain absolute positioned containers too. Sorry, absolute position elements. So this align content will apply to the whole content. Okay, it will apply to the whole content. So there are a couple of property values you can actually check out. Okay, so let's take a look at for the flex items. All right, let's take a look at some of the let's take a look at some of the properties. So the first one we take a look at is the order. So when you say that a flex, when you now you can see that normally they follow the order the way they were now if you take a look at our if you take a look at our day 7, you will see that the logo started first, followed by the home, and that is how everything is followed here. So if you try to say order, all right, if you try to give order, all right. If you try to give order to these items, then you would say, okay, I don't want the logo to come first. Maybe I want the about us to come first. So that is where you now use order to reposition this program using CSS. So it will make us to write a couple of styles here. So I would now look at what I would do. I would say for the ID, that is logo, I'll give it order of 3. All right. Then for the ID, that is home, I'll give it order of, let's say, 1. Okay, you can see I'm reordering everything now. For the ID of services, I'll give it the order of let's say 5. Now, I did not give the remaining ones, I didn't give them order. So the thing is that the browser would still maintain their distance. So the first thing that will come here now is no longer logo, it will be home. Now, since we do not have two, all right, since we do not have to, the about us and the contact us will not come um, after the home, then the logo will not come as the third one, and the service will not come as the last one. So I will save and I will go back here. Then I'll have to give this ID. ID is equal to logo. ID is equal to home. ID is equal to services. So if I save this, watch what will happen. I save this. You can see, okay, now look at it. Now, because okay, yes, let me make this thing now. Look at it, by default, the order for every element here is 0. By default, it is 0. So now you see the reason why we have the about us and the contact us to come first is because their order came first, because their order is 0. So the home is 1. So 1 is greater than 0. So 0 should come first. So that is why you see the about us and the contact us, they still maintain their 0 default order. Their order by default is 0. And then that is why they came first. So you can see that the home is 1, the logo is 3, and the service is 5. So they'll follow that order. So if you want to rearrange the order, just first of all, remember that by default, their order is zero, okay? And you do the home and the logo and that in that order, okay? So we also have the flex grow, we have the flex shrink, all right? So the flex grow has to do with when the container does not have a now this flex grow has to it's now if the browser, all right, if the flex grow tells the browser to either grow the item or not in case there is if there is excess space, all right, grow it, all right. So what it means is this: if I say um if I go back and say if I go back and say, go to my style sheet and say, um, with the logo, okay, if that is, I will say flex grow. If I set it to, let's say by default it is zero, it doesn't grow. So what it means is that since it by default it is zero, it doesn't grow. It means that if there is excess space in the what's it called in the container, all right, it will never grow, even though there is excess space. But if I now say, okay, if I give it a value, let's say I give it one, it would grow by a ratio of one when the space in the container increases. So let's say I want it to grow by three. All right. So it means that if there is excess space in the container, the browser will make it grow. The width or the space of it will grow. So to make this thing work, I'm using space between here. So I'm just going to remove this justify content. Okay, let me just remove this justify content so that the space are not equal. I'll just take it back to, let's say, start, which is actually the default. Okay, now look at what will happen. If I save, all right, I go to the browser. You can see that the logo has a lot of space. Okay, let me go and give this logo some background color. I'll give it some background color of red and maybe a padding of let's say 5 pixel. Now look at this guy here. You can see now that because there is excess space to share here. This guy is getting times three of is it has grown three times. But if I say okay, um, don't grow it by three. When there is excess space, don't grow it by three. Just grow it by one, okay? You will see that it would not have that kind of space it has now. I'll save it now. Okay, so it is actually taking, because others do not actually have, uh, okay, let me do space between, okay? So with this flex grow, okay, this can be very, very tricky. This can be very, very tricky. So with the flex grow now, this guy is taking over the whole space that is available. All right. If I reduce the weight of this container, there will be no more space remaining. Okay, so it will grow according to the space that are available. Okay, so we also have the flex shrink. The shrink is the opposite of the grow. All right, when you read the book, you're going to understand better. And then we also have the align self. All right, the align self will position the item. It will override the align items in the container. It will position the item however you want to position it, start, end, center, whatever. Okay, so the flex is a shorthand of doing grow, shrink, and basis. Now the basis will give you the initial size of the item. Okay, maybe this didn't work well because of, let's go back again. All right, let's go back again. So we can see my flex grow didn't work the way I wanted it to work. So let me do basis, flex basis. Now, because this flex grow, the flex grow actually grows based on, by default, it is auto. Okay. But let's say if I give it a flex basis, I'm saying um, by when it is starting, start with 200 pixel. Okay, that is it. So, and I will now say, if there is excess space, grow it by ratio of 1. So if I go, um, okay, it starts by with 200 pixel. And if I go back and say, um, don't grow, if I say don't grow, all right, but you can see now that the width is 200, the basis is 200. Okay, and I said, if there is excess space, grow it by 1. You can see, but of course, if I say grow by 2 or by 3, that means I will need to, if I increase this so that there will be more space. This can be very tricky, okay? So you can see it has grown because there is more space now. It has grown by 2, all right? So this is something that you practice, and most especially read the book. Okay, I can't really explain everything because I can't even remember everything, how everything was right now. And most times when you're working with CSS, okay, when you're working with CSS, it is more of as you're working, you're checking your work. Oh, I applied this style. This style didn't apply very well. Oh, okay. I would change it. That is basically how CSS, when you're applying styles, that's basically how it works. So you just be working around with the values and until you get what you're looking for. Okay. So let's do some common example. We have done these examples already. Centering an item, all right, where you put everything in the center. Okay, so if you do justify content and align items to be center, if we go on to do that, we have already done something like this already. So if I go on and say justify align items to be center, and I say justify items to be center, everything will be in the center. All right. So everything will be in the center. So if I go to the browser now, you can see that everything, what happened? Okay, it's because of this guy has a lot of weight. So I will have to remove it. I will have to, if I remove this flex glue and stuff, you can see now that this, if I do and save, you can see we have everything in the center now. All right, we have everything in the center. So when you're working with this thing, you have to play around with these values to get exactly what you want. Okay. So the next exercise is responsive navbar. So with this responsive navbar, you make a space between, all right, and align item center so that as you're changing your, okay, let me show you what we mean by this responsive navbar. So I will make it um, space between. I'll make it space between. And maybe I should just take away this width so that we'll be using the width of the browser. Okay. Then if I come here now, you can see the space between. But once I start, you can see it is responsive. Now look at it. You see, they are responsive. Look at the way I'm changing the width of the browser and they are just going along. So whenever you want to build a responsive nav bar, you should be using like space between or space around. If I go now and use space around, it would accommodate the browser. If I say space around will look better. If I say space around, okay, the browser would adjust these guys based on the width of the browser. So if I look at it, it's making sense until it doesn't go further again. You can see, all right? They are adjusting, all right? So this is very responsive, okay? So you can also create flexible card, all right? So now you have to use the flex wrap. So when you have multiple items, okay, let me do something now. Um, if I'm using flex wrap, if I'm using flex wrap, okay, we have flex wrap here already. So if I go on to if I come here and add more of this, okay, we are going to have excess of these guys. But this might not be the best example because I'm using list items. So you can see, although we are using space around, but you can see that although this doesn't really make sense, but when you have like boxes, I will leave you to do this assignment, to do this. All right. I want you to create, if you cannot create it, you drop it in the WhatsApp group so that we do it. I want you to create buses, div bus. I want you to create buses, and these buses should be wrapped around each other. And then you can also give a gap if you want gap to be between them, if you want to give space between these flex items, you can use the gap. The gap can be in pixel, it can be in rem, it can be in percentage. All right. So that is where we'll wrap today's class. Okay. We were supposed to, okay. All right, so we can we can continue with this. So I will leave you to do this. Okay. Now this you see this flex. All right. This flex is a shorthand for this one is for flex grow. This one is for flex shrink, and this one is for basis. So this one is for grow, shrink, and basis. Okay. All right. This is flex, grow, shrink, and basis. So the basis will give the initial size of the flex item. All right. So in this case, these card items um, would be the initial size would be 200 pixels. So we were supposed to continue with the grid, okay? But I'm going to add this grid class as a bonus. I don't like this class to be too long. I will make another, it's not going to be in our, it's not, I will make it as a bonus, all right? And make it available to you guys. The grid technique is going to be, it's a very long one too, and there is a lot to go talk about. So I'll make it as a bonus class, and you would also have it. So you also be learning how to use the grid system to create stuff. Okay. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next class.